I think the number one hurdle to overcome is you've got to understand what is their motivation. And if you don't understand what their motivation is, you're going to present them with options they don't care about. We've done that a few too many times.
Seth Patin didn't get an MBA at Stanford and lacked the connections in the world of venture capitalism, but he had the skills and the vision to start a new company, so he funded it out of his own pocket. The company is LogistiVIEW, and they're attempting to revolutionize industrialized work through the use of virtual reality and artificial intelligence. In this second part of our conversation with Seth, he discusses some of the challenges he's met funding his own company and how early feedback from potential clients caused him to refine his approach to their product development. Seth, I'm excited to continue our conversation now digging into this journey. 5 years, almost 6 years into LogistiVIEW, but even longer, is that close to 9 years with Axelogics?
Yep.
Coming from a consulting firm with Axelogics, then saying I'm going to develop a product company, tech company, that is an interesting flow. Tell me, how did that process happen? What were kind of some major milestones and hurdles that you had to overcome to get to where you are now?
Yeah, the interesting part about, I always wanted to develop software. That was always something I really wanted to do. I mean, my degree is in computer engineering. I picked computer engineering in 8th grade. I mean, I was pretty much always going to be doing software. Although I should, if I'm honest, I originally thought I was going to go to school and learn how to do Intel chip design or something like that. And I thought I was going to go do something awesome like that. And then I realized I'm not very good at digital hardware design. I'm much better at software. And in software, I actually have a pretty good skill set. And so,
which is still pretty cool. I mean,
it's still pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, it's a good consolation prize. But yeah, software has been in my life. So I got an internship at a company called Red Prairie, which is since merged into a company called JDA, which since renamed itself to Blue Yonder. So but the company's still around, and the software that I started my career on in 2004 is still the same software that we use today. It's obviously advanced a little bit since then. We've changed the core of the platform has changed substantially since then, but a lot of the features are very much still the same. So having the experience of implementing warehouse management software and developing warehouse management software for the vendor, then shortly after that, I was there for about 18 months. I moved to a company called Take Two Interactive, and Take Two was the parent company of Jack of All Games, which is the distribution wing that I worked for. But they're also better known as the parent company of Rockstar Games. And everyone who's ever heard of video games at all probably recognizes that Rockstar is the producer of GTA. So we had at the age of 22, I moved into this role, kind of leading the warehouse technology and development team. And it was definitely an interesting experience, but it gave me the perspective of being a customer, the consumer of the technology. Was a good experience to have. And then 2 years later, that job changed substantially. The company was changing substantially because digital distribution was coming along.
Yeah, they actually shipped games back then.
No one actually ships games anymore. So that model was dying very quickly, and so Take Two sold off the business unit, and and I ended up going elsewhere to become a consultant. And I've spent the last 13 years now 14 years doing consulting and implementing the same types of systems that I originally started working on at Red Prairie, and that I ran for, as a customer for 2 years at Take Two. So I had started Axelogics 2 years prior to starting LogistiVIEW. I started Axelogics in 2012 and LogistiVIEW in 2014. Had I not had Axelogics, LogistiVIEW never would have been possible.
Because you self-funded this venture.
As of yet, yes. And that has been a process, a hurdle, as I believe you called it. That is a big hurdle. It's a huge pile of cash, or actually it's a huge hole in my wallet right now that, that we are, that I think is going to be an investment that absolutely pays off really well. And I think we're definitely going in the right direction to make that happen. But it takes a lot of willingness to to take that risk. And sure, if I was maybe a Stanford MBA or something, I could go do the venture capital route in Silicon Valley. I've actually spent a decent amount of time out there. I've talked to a lot of VCs, but it's I'm not really I'm not quite the right fit, so to speak. And this technology isn't exactly the right fit technology either. It's complicated. Complicated technology is complicated technology is hard to explain to people. And so you kind of have to have the right investor who understands the niche. And so I was the right investor who understood the niche.
Where did you start to see traction with first couple pilot clients and getting them on board? What were some of the tactics you used to make that come together?
I think the number one thing that started making it click for us, we went through all of 2017 doing demonstrations, at a couple of public events, as well as demonstrations to prospects. And we originally had a fairly, the MVP was very, it had a very specific use case. It was very, it was very limited in its flexibility. And at that time, I was asking my customers to change too much. Particularly, we started with smart glasses. So the difference between LogistiVIEW and other mobile platforms is we started with smart glasses and then backed into phones and tablets and iOS and Android and browsers and everything else. So now we support everything, but we started with smart glasses. And we built the software for smart glasses. The cool thing about that is it allowed us to come at the entire platform with a vision-first attitude. If you take a look at Zoom, Zoom's motto is voice first, or video first conference calling. And they say we optimized our conference calling for video, and then that's how we're different. And LogistiVIEW is very much the same way. We optimized, we built the software originally for visual input and visual communication to the end user. And that had a substantial, it played a substantial difference into how our technology worked. But smart glasses were really hard to sell in the beginning. And they still are today, to be honest with you. Yeah. Some of our customers definitely do use them. They use them in production deployments, on a regular basis. So it's not like it's unheard of. Until we started doing all of that, we couldn't get them over the hump. One of the hardest conversations I ever had was with one of the largest retailers in the world. I'll let you guess which one. Who basically said, "We love the potential of your technology, but it just you need to have a broader range of support for various things. The approach that you're attempting to push is a great idea in theory, but it's too far of a change." Mm-hmm. That caused a lot of soul searching for me, because I was like, wait a minute, I'm not letting the customer make the decision. I'm trying to make it for them. And I really need to change. That drove a lot of roadmap changes. We spent one whole quarter basically suddenly porting this thing to, every device and adding in more, IoT capabilities to allow them the options that they were looking for.
Because you're not going after necessarily early adopters. You're trying to get the main market to help all warehouses, and realizing, wow, they need to they're not there yet, and being able to take a step back.
Absolutely. And so some of that critical feedback from some of our earliest sales cycles was what set us up in 2018 to start getting pilot customers. In 2018, we started acquiring a bunch of pilot customers. 2 of those turned into production contracts by the end of 18. We then last year acquired 4 more production contracts, or 4 more production sites, I should say, and a number of additional pilot customers as well. And so now we are actually in production rollout, mode for one of the largest 3PLs in the world, a company called DB Schenker. So we're finding use cases there where they are systematically looking to put us in.
What do you see then going forward, some of the hurdles, especially when it comes to communication and communicating the value and getting them to understand and remove any resistance or uncertainty from your target market? What do you see as some of those hurdles to overcome?
I think the number one hurdle to overcome is you've got to understand what is their motivation. And if you don't understand what their motivation is, you're going to present them with options they don't care about. We've done that a few too many times. I mean, I always joke. I have a bachelor's of science in computer engineering from the Milwaukee School of Engineering, and I have an MBA from the School of Hard Knocks. I've made plenty of mistakes. I mean, just learn from them, and still learning from them. I mean, by all means, we still have a lot of learning to do. But the number one thing that we've really had to do is understand what their objective is, and then back the technology into the objective. Leading with the technology, the whole idea of leading with a solution without an understood problem is just a recipe for failure. It will almost always cause you, especially if it's a complex solution. It's one thing to say, hey, you might be thirsty. Here's a Coca-Cola. Chances are you're going to win with that one. But if you say you might need a vehicle, here's a moped. Chances are you've missed the mark. And so that's where saying you need warehouse technology. Here's a pair of smart glasses was a bridge too far.
The journey that you're on with getting this adoption, do you see the pandemic helping or hurting?
I think in the end, it's going to help substantially. In the short term, it kind of sucked because all of our sales cycles basically froze. So for 2.5 months, we did nothing at all. And so, that was a bit painful, but our pipeline post-pandemic is actually ramping up at a faster rate than it ever has. We're not technically post-pandemic yet. We've reached the point where a few things are open again, and it's already.
Are people out of shock maybe, and they're like, now they're trying to plan forward?
Well, the thing about the pandemic that's interesting is at first we all froze for 2 weeks. We're like, okay, we're gonna flatten the curve, and then hopefully, I think a lot of people were like, well, hopefully it goes back to normal. Yeah, anyone who thought about it real hard went, yeah, it's probably not going to happen, but curious to see what the new normal is. Well, 4 weeks later, 4 weeks more of extension. By the end of April, we were all like, this is probably going to be a while. Then May rolled around and we're like, oh crap, it's really going to be a while. And now I think in June, we all recognize that this is pretty much here to stay. This until we have a vaccine for this virus, it's not, we're not going to stop doing this. We're not going to stop social distancing. We're not going to stop limiting the number of people who go into grocery stores and restaurants. We're not going to stop picking stuff up instead of going into the grocery store. It has changed our behaviors permanently. Truth is, even after a vaccine, okay, great. I don't have to be scared of coronavirus, but I might have to be scared of the next thing after it. What's coronavirus's younger, meaner brother? That's the kind of, that's what the world is now reckoning with. And that behavioral change is simultaneously difficult for people to process, but from a business perspective, it's a profound opportunity.
Have there been any books or audiobooks that really stuck out to you, and or podcasts?
I don't listen to podcasts all that much. I'm more of a book person, although I don't read the books. I listen to them on Audible. But I think there's a couple of books that have just really had a profound impact on my mental thought processes. The first one I mentioned is Crossing the Chasm. Fantastic book. Absolutely. If you're a tech entrepreneur and you haven't made all the mistakes that I've made already, read it so you make fewer of the mistakes that I've made already. Fantastic book. Another great book for leadership development, because I think that's one of the things that entrepreneurs especially, you can be a fantastic engineer and a really crappy leader, like really, really bad. And certainly we see plenty of examples of that in Silicon Valley. One of my favorite books about and it's interesting, it's not really explicitly about leadership, but it impacts how you think, is a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. It is a fantastic book. It talks about how you should think about yourself and how you should think about your team, your employees, your family members, etc. Great book. Obviously, everyone talks about, books like Good to Great and, pretty much anything Jim Collins or whatever. I mean, I've read all of those, and yeah, they're absolutely all good books.
Looking forward, what kind of technology innovations overall, anywhere, do you predict we will see in the near term, next year or so, and the long term, next 10 years?
That's a really good question. I think near-term tech innovation is going to be probably primarily focused on alterations to our life associated with coronavirus. There's a lot of friction in the world right now, a lot of digital friction in the world that can be solved through, for example, one of the products that we've built during the pandemic is a LogistiVIEW configuration set that we call Curb Connect. And the concept behind Curb Connect is that if I go to a restaurant and I order takeout all the time, and I put, I either order on the phone or, I order on the web or on their website, whether it be through one of the ordering services or whatever. Almost always the last step of the process is that, in coronavirus days anyway, you come and you wait, you come outside the restaurant and you wait for them to bring you out the food. Well, oftentimes they don't have enough phone lines. And there's no good process. There's no simple process to help them know that you're there and keep you in your car without having to go into the restaurant. And so we actually built a solution that uses text messaging and basic order entry, 2 pieces of information, and it is designed to help streamline that process. And so we're just now beginning to introduce that to a few folks. So it's very early in its life cycle, but it was so easy and it was so frustrating to me that every time I went to go do this, the restaurant workers were frustrated, I was frustrated, and my food was cold. Things like that. I mean, that's not going to be a $1 billion idea or anything like that, but it's those types of ideas. How can I solve those problems? That little incremental bit. How can I make my smartphone more useful for me? How can I make, how can I have, home devices to, improve my, my life in this, in this time, because now I'm spending more time at home. I think that's going to be where most consumer-focused, consumer-visible innovation goes.
Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.